So, how are you guys? Learning so far? Good? All right, before I start, I would like to formally introduce my family. This is a picture of my family. Yes, that's me and my three kids. We have three kids, and the first is Yeshua, second is Isabel, and Yana. Yana's 2 years old right now. Yeshua's 10, and Isabel is 6. And usually, when we talk like this, later on, you'll see that my wife will be here in front. And whenever we talk, we notice that people would look at me and then look at her. Ba't kayo natawa? Look at me, look at her. Look at me, then look at her, and then silence. And then I realized, even before we speak, by God's grace, now people believe that miracles do happen. And that God answers prayer. So, yeah, we've been married for 15 years now. And, for those of you who are still not convinced, and some of you are still not convinced that we're married, so I scanned our wedding photo. Ayan, as proof that we are really married. Okay ba? And then, for some of you who are still not convinced, well, some of you parang nagdududa pa eh. So, I scanned a certificate of marriage. See? Encouraged na kayo. And for those of you who are still not convinced, needs more convincing, I have an NSO copy right here in my pocket. I can show you later. Pinanotaryohan ko kanina yan. So, the topic for today, for our talk is, I will roll with it. You know, we come into marriage with so much high expectations. A lot of people, when we get married, you know, the people that we invite in our wedding day, they have so much expectation for our marriage, as if they want to view our marriage as the ideal marriage, the wedding of the year. So much expectations. But then, let me ask you a question. Why is there so much expectation when we have not learned anything or nobody taught us about marriage? Meron bang subject ng marriage during our elementary days? Meron bang subject during our high school days? College? So, there is no subject, there is no class about marriage, but people have this high expectation that marriage will be okay. And we've seen a lot of people na they're not doing okay in their marriage because they have not learned their roles. And so today, we will try to learn our roles, but before that, we will have an activity. So on your tables, we put there, if you see, Post-its. So one Post-it per person, and I want you to post it. Pin your expectations. Later on, just write one word that should describe the role of your partner. For example, if you're the bride or if you're the wife, write down the role of your husband. What do you expect your husband to be? The top role that you want your husband to be, or your expectations about your husband. Just if you can describe it in one word, please write it. Now, if you're the husband, write down the role for your wife that you expect them to be. All right? So write it now. Ngayon lang ang pagkakataon na pwede mong isulat yung gusto mong isulat dyan. So please write it. And for those of you who are afraid that your spouse or your partner will see what you're writing, you can ask your seatmate, say, bro, pwede ba ikaw na lang sumulat? Baka mahalata ni Mrs. eh. All right, so write down your role. Please, we have 5 minutes to do this. Just write it down. Write down the role, your expectation, the role that you think your husband should be doing, or the role you think that your wife should be doing. All right, go. Ayan. You got it? All right, so if you have written it, I would like you to post it on this wall. All the women, post your expectations for your husband on this whiteboard. And for all the men, post it here on this whiteboard. Go. Sino yung matapang na lalaki dyan maunang maglagay? Atapang at tao. Okay, you can just give it to your D group leaders and post it there. All right. Okay, please do it now. All right. I would like to ask the help of our host. If Kim can read the women's side so that the men will understand what women want. Actually, Kim, can you read yung expectations ng men? All right, mamaya, once they put it. Ayan. Ayan. Bakit yung isang babae, Manila paper ata yung nilalagay? Post-it lang po. Alright. And maybe if Johan is here, can I ask Johan to read the role na sinulat ng mga babae? Yan. Some of the men that I saw writing, nanginginig-nginig pa. So, all right. So, bro, you can read the one on this side.
Manny, ang daming post-its.
Yeah, we could just read it fast. Bam, 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 bam,
I
bam,
can
bam.
I can see some of the guys coming back the second time around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Daming pinopost.
Muulit.
Oo. Kulang daw yung isang post-it eh.
Kulang yung isang post-it.
Okay, so for the ladies, I could see they put
Okay.
here lead, leader, provider.
All right, hold on, yo. I'll just get their attention. Mas marami atang sinulat yung mga lalaki eh. So, hold on.
See, I told you,
Alright.
Johan is
Yeah.
ready with the girl side.
I
Dito,
know. I know.
traffic.
So, does it mean that the men have more expectations? Parang nasa likod na sila. Sa likod na naglalagay.
Let's find out.
Aba, bumawi ang mga babae. Ayan. So, they're putting it now. So, all right, you guys ready? Men, are you ready to hear the expectations of the women? Men? Parang wala ah. So, all right, I will ask Johan now. Listen, guys, listen. Please give your attention to Johan as he reads the expectations of women, the ones that they want their husband to become. All right, go, brother.
Okay, so here we have provider, lead, leader. Okay, protect, spiritual leader. There's a lot of it that says leaders will lead, provider, best friend. Meron dito knight in shining armor.
Wow.
Okay. But most of it also says spiritual leader, partner, bro, pambabayan. Okay. So we have our volunteers helping us. Understanding, lead, loving husband to love me. Best friend and partner, loving and father to my children. Generous, more patience, honest, okay, faithful, respectful. Oh, be submissive, be calm. Be calm at laging calm.
It's good that you are
more,
here
be more
attending
kind.
this seminar.
Be more kind.
What else?
Yeah.
I see here, be great. In bed? No, I don't know.
Ito,
Who wrote that?
kaagapay.
Kaagapay. All right, thank you, Brother Yo. So, what are the top 3 things that women want from men? Provider, yes. Leader, and be caring. Lover, right? So, is this the first time you've done this? How come it's all consistent? What women need from men is actually consistent. Now, you want to know what the men wrote? Okay, Kim, you can read it.
Marami akong choices. Okay.
All right.
So we have a lot of similar answers here like support, nurture, take care of the home, be more understanding. But I've handpicked some of the more interesting ones. Okay. So one says to support my decisions as an equal or lessen the load. Yung isa, maasikaso at mapagmahal at binibili ang mga gusto ko.
Wow.
Role ba yun ng wife? Okay. Eto, my name pa, I expect Eliza, my wife to be with me for the rest of my life. So, my forever. Eto, to love me now and forever, to understand me even though I'm hard to understand. There's another one, to be less angry. Tatlong exclamation point.
Wow.
Understanding. Tatlong exclamation point. Patient. Exclamation point ulit.
Wow.
And then, there's another one, galingan magluto, di siya marunong magluto eh.
Kim, tago mo na yan. Baka mamaya tingnan yung handwriting eh.
And then there's another one, so maybe you can expound on
All right.
this with your message.
Sure.
He says, no idea yet. So he
No
doesn't
idea
know
yet.
what to expect.
All right. Good. Very good. So, thank you, Kim. And if you are going to summarize what the men wrote, what would your one word for the role of women, their expectations about women? Support. Isn't that amazing? It's consistent. You have not talked about this. You didn't ask your seatmate. You probably don't know them. And yet it is consistent. Even before we start talking about the roles of husband and wife, we already know that we are designed to do these roles. And these are the roles that we expect from one another. So we have different expectations, but we need to meet those expectations by understanding and doing our part. So I will talk about the men's part, the role of men, and then my wife later on will talk about the women's part because I don't want to get in trouble with the women. So, men, learn your roles as a man. So, there are 3 roles that we need to know as a man. All the men, can we all read this? Be the head, so you need to lead. Feel the heart, so you need to love. And then use your hands to provide. So, if you summarize it, your role as a man is to be the leader, lover, provider. Men, can you repeat it? Parang hindi kayo excited dun sa role niya. Give it a little bit of gusto. Can you all say your role? 1, 2, 3, go. Lover, provider. All right, so I would just like to point out that we have equal rights. It's not about rights, but we have different roles. We are created by God equally. As far as God is concerned, He sees us as an equal. But as far as our roles are concerned, we need to do our role differently. And because God has given us different role, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So be the head by leading your wife. So as a leader, lead your wife. What is lead her? What do you mean by leading your spouse or leading your family? Genesis 3, 8-9 says here, I'll just read it. They heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife, who is God referring to? The first man and the first woman? Adam and Eve. The man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of God among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God called the man and said to him, what? Where are you? Leadership equals responsibility. So, God created them equally. Now, let me ask you a question. If you know the story of, the first fall, Adam and Eve, sino bang unang nagkasala? Who sinned first? Eve. And then, so when God approached them, and they at first they were not ashamed that they were walking naked. They were enjoying the garden, and after they sinned, they realized they're naked after eating the fruit. And then after eating the fruit, what did God do? He visited the man and woman and said, "Where are you, Adam?" Bakit si Adam yung tinawag ni God, hindi si Eve? Si Eve yung una nagkasala. Why do you think? If you look at the story in Genesis chapter 3, Genesis chapter 1 and 2, marriage is supposed to be thriving. God gave them the perfect place. It's in paradise, the Garden of Eden. It's supposed to be thriving. But because they disobeyed, what happened? They both sinned. And God puts the responsibility on the man. I was looking at this and I thought, bakit si Adam yung hinahanap? Wala ba siyang, why did Adam allow the woman to be tempted by the snake? Kung Pilipino to, siguro hindi kinain nung yung fruit eh. Baka yung snake ang kinain eh. So if it's a Chinese, if Adam was Chinese, malamang yung snake ang kinain natin eh. So we would have been spared from this. But then how come, where was Adam when this was all happening? When the wife is being tempted by the devil, where was Adam? When the wife was being tempted by somebody else, where was Adam? Question to you, men. Will you allow your spouse to be tempted by another man? What will you do? You're going to fight for your wife. You're going to shoo away the man, right? But then here, I thought Adam was away, Adam was not around. When you read the Bible, Adam was just there beside Eve. And he was allowing Eve to talk to the snake. So ahas na yon, pinabayaan niyang lumapit kay Eve. And so God, as far as God is concerned, hey, man, you are responsible to your wife's, to your family's well-being. So, as far as God is concerned, if your marriage thrives, it is the man's responsibility. If it becomes broken, it is the man's responsibility. We need to lead our spouse. We need to lead in the marriage. What else? Leadership is service. Yes, it is responsibility. We are the leader, but leadership is service. Mark 10:43-45 says here, whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man, that is Jesus, did not come to be served, but to serve others, to give his life as a ransom for many. So, how does this imply? You know, we have this machismo view of a man. You know, I'm the man, you're supposed to serve me as a woman. Pagluto mo ko, paglaba mo ko, you know, you do this all because I just came from work. I used to be like this. In fact, our marriage, you know, it's only by God's grace that Lisa and I are speaking here right now, serving you guys and talking about this. But our marriage, the first 5 years of our marriage was hell on earth. Because I have that view, I feel that I was a good leader and I was a good provider for the family. But I have never thought that leadership is actually serving. And so one time I came home, coming from work, and my wife wanted the garbage to be taken out in the morning. Eh nakalimutan ko because my work is in Pampanga, so I had to drive there, 2 hours going there and 2 hours going back. So I came home, I was expecting my wife to serve me, to prepare a meal, to open the door, paligo na siya, and then she will hug me. But then, you know what? When I knocked on the door, yung sumalubong sa akin is yung basura. Can you throw this? You've left it. And so, how did I feel? I felt like, you know, I'm not supposed to be doing this. You have the whole day with yourself and just with a kid. How come you couldn't even do it? And so, when that happened, I was so mad that I even threatened her. I got a knife and threatened her, and I told her, don't ever do that to me again. Actually, tinatagalog ko, wag mong gagawin sa akin. Hindi niya ako naintindihan. So, I got more frustrated, so don't ever do that to me again. And so, from that point on, I realized, you know, my marriage is not going to survive. And even my 1-year-old kid was there. In front of him, I did that to my wife. And so because I have this wrong view of marriage, and later on maybe Lisa can share how she forgave me of my transgressions. And I would like to encourage you, if your marriage is a wreck right now, I'm here to tell you that God can fix it. God is a God who can save your marriage and restore your marriage as He did to us. And this group, your group right now, that really helped us. I'm a product of before and after I do. Just to tell you guys, I'm a product, Lisa and I are a product of this. That's why we're so passionate about telling this. And my point here is, leadership is service. If your wife, you're there to serve your wife. Later on, Lisa will tell, we're going to focus on the role of the husband first. So husband, you are there to lead your family, and part of leadership is serving them. Next, leadership is understanding. You husbands, in the same way, live your wives in an understanding way as someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. Have you ever prayed to God and feel like, you know, how come I've been praying that I will be promoted. I've been praying that my business will be blessed, but somehow I feel like my prayer, there's something that is blocking my prayer. You know who's blocking your prayer? Not your wife, it's you. your relationship with your wife. It says here, if you do not understand, if you are not living, if you are not loving your wife in an understanding manner, God is actually hindering your prayer. Parang walang signal. Because as far as God is concerned, you are the leader. You need to make sure that your relationship with your spouse is okay. Once your relationship with your spouse is okay, then your relationship with God will be okay. He wants you to lead your family the same way God is leading His church. Later on, we'll discuss that even more, so that your prayers will not be hindered. You know, I was looking at the word hindered in the Bible. The original word is, it's like an army blocking your way. Would you want your prayer to feel like an army blocking your way? If you don't want that, if you want God to hear your prayers, your desires, your wishes for your family, then make sure that you live with your wife in an understanding way. You know, a lot of men, we get the girl of our dreams by being outstanding, but we keep them by being understanding. Take note. Sometimes we men want to be outstanding in everything we do. So we want to be outstanding at work. We want to be outstanding in ministry. We want to be outstanding in front of other people. But as far as the wife is concerned, you know, it's good for you to be outstanding, to be excellent in everything you do. But the very first thing that she appreciates from you is for you to be understanding of her. And sometimes we can have a good career, we can earn a lot of money, we can bring a lot of money on the table, but if we are outstanding outside, but if we are not understanding inside the home, then it all goes into vanity. We need to be understanding. Now, so we've talked about the leadership, the head. Now you need to fill her heart by loving your wife. So love her. You need to be a lover. Fill the heart, love her. Ephesians 5:25-27 says here, husband, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that you may sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present to himself the church in all her glory, having no spot, no wrinkle, or any such thing, that she would be holy and blameless. Now, husbands, love your wives just as who? Who is the standard? Wow. So that means that I need to live my life as Christ lived his life on earth for the church. I need to sacrifice the same way Christ sacrificed for all of us, the church. Sabi ko, bigat naman yan. Sobra naman bigat yan. Look at this. And gave himself up for her so that he might sanctify her. So it means it is the husband's job to make her wife holy. What? Isn't that the job of the pastor? Isn't that the job of the priest? That's my job, to make my wife holy. You know, God is challenging us that we should be not only, the physical provider, the leader in the family, but we should also be the leader, the spiritual leader at home. Question, are you being the spiritual leader at home? On Sundays, sinong gumigising sa'yo para sa simbahan? Especially for those who are married. Who invites who when there is a worship service? Is it the wife or the husband? It should be the husband. Who wakes up earlier? Is the wife or the husband? It should be the husband. Now, let's look at this. Having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present to himself a church in all her glory, having no spot, no wrinkle, or any such thing. I want you to look at your spouse or your future spouse. Meron bang wrinkle? Kasalanan mo yan. Sabi dito, no spot, no wrinkle, or any such thing, that she would be holy and blameless. Tingnan mo yung mister mo o misis mo pala. May spot or wrinkle? Wala. Ayan, wala naman eh. Wala naman. Naitago namin. I give her Botox, for budget for Botox. But you know what? As far as God is concerned, we, the husbands, we need to make sure that all the stress at home, your job as a lover is to absorb it before it hits her. Your job is to absorb all the hurts, all the discouragement before it hits your wife. That is your job. You need to be a lover. And our job, the goal is for us to present our wife holy and blameless. If other people has something to say negative to your spouse, that is your responsibility. Maybe you have not loved her enough. Maybe you have not led her enough. So, you have not led the family closer to God. Fill the heart, nourish and cherish. So husbands ought to love their own wives after their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ also does for the church. Now, what do you mean by nourish? Nourish is for you to give whatever it is that would allow your spouse, your wife, to reach her full potential. Men, I would like you to raise your hands. Raise your hands. I want to see your fingers. How many fingers do you have? 10. For those of you who have 12 fingers, that's okay. You have bonus. It's 10 fingers. I want you to look at your fingers right now, and I want you to see this. That your wife, as far as God is concerned, God has given them 10 out of 10 potential. And it is your job, men, to help them reach that 10 out of 10 potential. When you married your spouse, she is full of potential. After being married to her, nasa na siya ngayon? Is she closer to 10 or naging negative 10? First 5 years of our marriage, I was negative 10. Even more, 10, maybe negative 20. Our marriage was negative 20. But God has allowed us to reach 10 out of 10 potential for our wife and for our marriage. The question for you right now is, if you will rate your marriage or your relationship, how would you rate it from 0 to 10? 10 being the highest. How would you rate your marriage right now? And my encouragement for you is this. God wants you to reach that 10 out of 10. I came so that you may have life and have it to the full. The enemy comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Who's the enemy? The mother-in-law. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. You didn't hear that. Can you take that out? 10 out of 10. The enemy comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. That sounds like my mother-in-law. No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, my mother-in-law is amazing. But Jesus came so that you may have life and have it to the full. And that is my encouragement for you. It doesn't matter if you're negative 20 right now. The reason why you are here is because God wants you to reach your 10 out of 10 potential and do your role. So nourish is about giving her what she needs so that she can reach her full potential. And cherish means even if she has not reached that potential yet, you still enjoy her. You get the difference? Nourish is you put in the effort, the time, the energy, so that the encouragement, so that she can reach that potential. But even if she's not there yet, you still cherish and love her no matter what. Would you like your wife to look like this, like blooming, colorful, or like this? It's up to you. That is your job. All of us would want our spouse to look like this. Now, let me ask you another question. What is the greatest fear of women? What do you think is the greatest fear of women? Mabuntis. Well, yeah, that's part of it. Kasalanan mo yan. What is the greatest fear of women? Somebody made a survey, and this is the result of the survey. This is the answer. The greatest fear of women is that their husband would stop loving them. That's the greatest. Women, would you agree? Yes or no? And sometimes it doesn't take another woman for our spouse not to feel like, where our love is now directed to another woman. Sometimes it's not another woman. Sometimes it's just your barkada. Sometimes women feel like our barkada is more important than us. Tama mali. Or sometimes it's your motorcycle is more important than you. Yung motorcycle niya, inihimas na maya't maya. Ako man lang, di man lang niya ako mahimas. Or the car. Or whatever. Or the dog. Or even the kids. Golf. Oh, no, don't go there, bro. Don't go there. No, but sometimes it is the things that we do that takes away that women feel like, you're spending more time with this. Sometimes it's work even. And sometimes it's ministry. I know a lot of ministers whose marriage are a wreck because why? because the wife feels like the ministry is more important than the family. Don't go there. Because the greatest fear of women is that their husband would stop loving them. So what is the question that could elevate your marriage? What is that one question? Forget everything I say today, men. If you do this and if you pursue this, this is gonna make your marriage. It will, for example, your rating is 5. It will elevate it to 8 right away. Would you want to know the answer? What is the one question that could elevate your marriage? It is this: honey, how can I make you feel more loved? Can you do that right now? Honey, how can I make you feel more love? By the way, when you talk to your spouse or your future spouse, I want you to look at them. How do you, when you are listening to your spouse, what organ do you use to listen? What? Ears? Mali. Heart? It's the eyes. When you speak to your spouse, you'd know that your spouse is caring for you and is sincere if you're looking at them eye to eye. So whenever you are talking to them, make sure you're looking at them eye to eye. Try it now. Try it now. Try it now. Awkward ba? Awkward? You know why it's awkward? Because you're not used to it anymore. But when you were just courting your wife or your spouse, you couldn't take your eyes off her eyes. Tama mali. Now I want you to exercise this. Practical. I want you to look at your spouse, men. Look at her and hold her hand and say, honey, how can I make you feel more loved? Kita nyo, wala pa kayong ginagawa, kilig na yung mga babae. Yan pa lang, hindi nyo pa ginagawa yung sinabi nila, and yet they feel like, oh my goodness, I'm the most special woman on earth. Yes, women, or no? Would you like your spouse to be talking to you this way, holding your hand, looking at you instead of looking at the cell phone? Yes, very good. So passion versus intimacy. Sometimes you go into marriage, we're so passionate, we're so in love. We're so passionate, full of passion. But the passion is the quickest to develop, but it is the quickest to fade. Intimacy develops more slowly and commitment more gradually still. So that is the difference between passion and intimacy. Let's shoot for intimacy. And you can build intimacy by spending more time with your spouse and listening to them, caring and nourishing them. So, Ravi Zacharias said, love is a commitment that will be tested in the most vulnerable areas of spirituality. A commitment that will force you to make some very difficult choices. It is a commitment that demands that you deal with your lust, your greed, your pride, your power, and your desire to control, your temper, your patience, and every area of temptation that the Bible clearly talks about. It demands the quality of commitment that Jesus demonstrates in His relationship with us. Question for you is, how committed are you? How committed are you? Last part. Use your hands to provide for your wife. Provide for her. Genesis 2:15 says here, then God took the man and put him to the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to keep it. And another verse says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. You know what I love about the Bible is this. It's so practical. And God is on our side. He's on our side. He's on the side of marriage. That is why you need God at the center. Remember Edric talking about the marriage triangle? God is on your side. As long as you're on God's side, your marriage will be okay. And so, God is telling here, oy, lalaki, maging masipag ka naman. Find work. One of our responsibility, one of the greatest responsibility is to be a provider. Now, we get a lot of questions. What if the wife earns more than the husband? As long as the husband is working, as long as he is hard working, that's okay. But the moment the husband, may feel so secured that the wife is able to supply the needs of the family and decides, hindi, maglilipat na kami. We change our role. I'll just stay in the house. I'll take care of the kids. I'll take care of the house. Ikaw na lang magtrabaho. And we see that a lot in the Filipino household. In fact, about 20 years ago, I've attended a seminar, marketing seminar, advertising congress. And they said, there will come a time that we will be marketing sabong panlaba and the dishwashing liquid, and we will use men as models. Is that happening now? Because why? They observe that many Filipino men stay home and allow their wives to work abroad so that they can provide for. Is that the ideal scenario? No. The ideal scenario, and what God is wanting us to have is that men should be the provider of the home. Magpakalalaki ka, you work. You work. Because as far as God is concerned, anyone who does not provide for their own relatives, especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. At this point, I would like to call on my wife to talk about the role of a woman.
Okay, so men, just to review, what are the 3 roles of the husband? Yell it out. What's the first one? Leader, lover, and provider. Okay, now we're going to move on to the women. And women, we're lucky we just have one to remember. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. How we as women can embrace our purpose. God is amazing. Way back in the beginning of time, when God first created the world, He already put into place what the purpose of women would be, especially of us as wives. So we see right in the beginning of the Bible, when God first created man and women, He's already telling us what our purpose is. And we see it here in Genesis 2, verse 18. Then the Lord said, "It is not good for a man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." So we can see here when God first created the first man and the first woman, He was already telling us women and wives, our job is to be the helper or helpmate. So we'll be looking at that word. What does it mean to be a helper? The word, it comes from, the original word is ezer, and it has the idea of being a helper, or a helpmate. Also the idea of being a life giver. So that is our role as women. Helpmate is simply we help meet their needs. And here's the thing, when we help our husbands, when we do our role and support them and encourage them, everybody wins. Because when we help our husband win, the whole family wins. So our job as women is really, really important. It's not a lowly, inferior role. God gave us different roles. The man has a different role from the women, but both are equally important, because when both work together well, that's when marriage becomes a beautiful thing. So helpmate is simply this. We come alongside our husband and we encourage them, we support them in order to accomplish God's purpose for the marriage and for their life. So we come alongside, we support, encourage. We be a life giver, not a life drainer. Sometimes we hear men, they complain that their wives, they feel like their wives sap all their energy from them. Like they feel like their wives are always complaining, they're always nagging, they're always unhappy with the marriage, they always want something. And that's really unfortunate, because our job as women is to be a life giver. We come alongside our husbands and we say, you know what? I see that you have an amazing amount of potential the way God made you, and I'm here to help you reach that potential that God has for you, because I know He has amazing plans for you. He has amazing plans for this family, and I'm right here beside you, and I'm going to do my part and support you, so together, we can see God do amazing things in your life and through this marriage. So that's our job. We come alongside our husband and we say, okay, how can I help meet his needs? How can I help support him and encourage him? Not only so that he wins, but so the whole family wins. Because as we learned, the husband is the head of the house. So when we help him be successful, the whole family becomes successful. So here's a man who understands. He says, I don't need Google, my wife knows everything. So here's a man who has a woman behind him who is doing her job. And earlier today, he mentioned to me, we were having a discussion, and he said this to me. He said, Lisa, in all honesty, the really successful men I know, it's because they have a woman behind them who is supporting them, who have a really encouraging and supportive spouse. And we can see the difference in men. Oh, he says, and I agree. So with men, I honestly, when we do counseling or with families that we know, just by looking at the man and by seeing his life, I can tell if he has a woman behind him who supports him and encourages him, who helps him do his role, or if there's a woman who drags him down. Unfortunately, a lot of women, wives, they feel like it's their job to tell their husbands everything that's wrong with them. He has a dream, he has a passion, and the wife was like, nah, I don't think you have what it takes, or you can't do it, or remember you messed up last time, I think you're going to mess up again. And that's very unfortunate because it really drags the husband down. So we're going to learn today how we can be encouraging and supportive of our husbands. We're going to learn how to be a helpmate and practical ways that we can put it into practice.
I just want to use this time to honor my wife. Joy and Edric was telling me a while ago, sabi niya, Manny, magmumukha kang bata lagi. Every year, it seems like you look younger and younger. I said, I can only credit my wife for that. So she's very good. She's been there, will you marry me? She's been there through thick and thin, and I will not be here serving you guys if God has not used her. And really, her patience toward me is really, really amazing. So I would like to thank you.
No, thank you. That's really God's grace. Like Manny shared, we come from a really, really difficult marriage. And we see what God has done in our marriage. And so that's why we are so passionate when we talk about couples, because we can tell them in all honesty, we've seen what God has done in our lives, and we know He can do it for you too. And really, the key is just we have to, number one, know God, and number two, follow His design and His roles. That's why we get so excited about events like this, because we know that God has an amazing plan for your lives. And we know that if we follow His design, we can enjoy marriage and we can thrive together. So God is good. We love serving together. We love doing this. So we'll talk today, women, practical side. How can we be a helpmate? How can we put it into practice? The first way is simply be a home manager. We see here in Titus 2, verse 3-5, it's a book that Paul is writing, and he's giving instructions to different people in the church. So he's saying, men, you do this, women, you do this. And when he talks to women, this is the instructions. He says, these older women must train the younger women to love their husbands and their children, to live wisely and be pure, to work in their homes, to do good, and to be submissive to their husbands. So women here, this is a beautiful verse because it kind of summarizes what our job as women is, to be a helpmate. So let's talk about being a home manager. Basically, it means let home be a place your husband wants to come home to. A while ago, we were talking to a couple, and she was complaining to me that the husband never comes home. He was a good man, but she was saying he's always at the office. And even he works late hours, and then he'll just come home, sleep immediately, get up, and go back to the office. He's always working. It's like I never see him. The kids never see him. And what's going on? So she's complaining to me. So we go talk to the husband. And this is what the husband said. He said, honestly, home is not a fun place to be. I would rather be at the office because as soon as I come home, my wife is nagging me, she's complaining, and she seems like she's always mad at me. So I'll just go back to the office because at least at the office, I'm winning there. And this is not a sole case. We see this in couples again and again. The women are complaining, why is my husband always out? And the husband is saying, the reason I'm always out is because when I'm home, it's like my wife is always mad at me. At least when I'm at work, I'm winning, I'm conquering something. At least, I'm earning money, people respect me. But as soon as I go home, it's like my wife opens the door and she's mad. So women, our job is, we should really let home be a place that our husband wants to come home to. So keep it organized, food on the table, neat and tidy. But not only that, but also in our attitude, the way we receive our husband. Home should be a place of rest, away from the battles they fight out and work or whatever they do. Home should be a place where they can come home and they know they're loved. They know that their family is happy to see them. They should want to come home. So we need to ask our husband, honey, what's important to you? Because different things are important to different men. So find out with your husband or your husband to be, in particular, what's important to them. You know, a few years ago, I was going to make my husband coffee. Now, if you know Manny and I, we are really coffee drinkers. We love our coffee. We really love coffee. So he likes it when I make coffee for him in the morning. So that was something I was trying to do. So I went to make him coffee and I realized, we have no sugar. So no sugar. So I just put the creamer, gave him the coffee, and then he tasted it. He's like, what's this? You know, so I explained, sorry, ran out of sugar. So I go about my day, but he's a little getting frustrated with me. And then he goes to his car. He's about to go to work early in the morning, and he notices the car was dirty. So he's like getting really frustrated now because he had wanted me to make sure that his car was cleaned for him because his car is important.
We have a helper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you expected me to...
I'm like,
yeah, not me.
Car wash lady na itong
Although
business ko.
I would do it for you. No, but he had wanted me to oversee and make sure that it got cleaned, okay? Which I had not done because honestly, I'm not really a car person.
Yung kotse grandia.
I'm not a car person, so it's really not I don't really notice, okay, if the car is clean or not. I don't notice. It's not important to me at all. But it's important to him. So he was getting upset that these small things that were important to him were just not getting done. I was just kind of overlooking it. So he got upset at me. And then my initial reaction was like to get upset back because I was thinking like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, who cares? Like really like, who cares about the sugar? Who cares about the car? Like it's not, because to me it's not a big deal, right? But then, God convicted me and he said, Lisa, if it's a big deal to your husband, you need to make it a big deal to you also. So what God told me was, these are very little things that he's asking you to do. It's just sugar. It's just making sure the car is clean. So God told me, why not just do it? If it's going to make him happy, if it's going to make him, start his day right, just do it with joy. So that was the turning point when God made me realize that I need to find out what's important to him. Even if it's not important to me, if it's important to him, then I should make it important to me. And even with our house, when we got married, I was a little bit more on the messy side. And Manny was very organized. I was going to say OC, but organized. Okay, organized. So he very, very particular. And I'm not super messy, but I wasn't like super neat. But then over time, God convicted me that I need to do better because it's important to him. So the funny thing is now we've kind of switched places. I'm the one who cares and wants things neat, and Manny has more relaxed on that side. So the funny thing is that I made it important to me. I decided, this may not have been my value before, but I'll make it my value now, just for the sake of the marriage. If it makes them happy, I'll do it. Just be willing to do it.
And the beautiful thing is, before I loved sugar. Now I don't even care about sugar. And so God is just using your spouse to really tweak and improve you. So that's how you should look at this. You serve your spouse, and then he will serve you back. And so you give 100% for her. You're not sucking anything from her, and she's not sucking from you. You just give, and she will give. And so it's like it's what God is saying. You submit to one another in mutual submission.
In
so
love.
and marriage will thrive by having that kind of ideal.
So just find even the little things that helps your husband feel loved. Just figure out what it is, and then just be willing to do it. The next way to put it into practice is submission. Now, when we talk about submission, this is a word that we worry about as women, right? Is anyone a little concerned? But don't be, because, okay, let me just say, this is what the world says submission is. So when we hear the word submission, this is what comes to our mind. We're like, oh no, that means, I have to just kiss his feet, and he has all these rules. This is what the world says, but this is not a biblical view of submission. So don't worry, that's not a biblical view. How about this one? This is also what we think submission is. We just have to get dragged, and I have to do everything I don't want to do for my husband. I just have to be a doormat. Again, this is not what submission is. That's not a biblical view. Because when God created the husband and the wife relationship, if you remember from Manny's talk, God first told men, you love your wives. So God has not created marriage just for women to get dragged around. God is telling husbands to love their wives, and then women are to submit because we know that that's the way God designed it. We see here in the verse Ephesians 5, verse 22 to 24. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. So we see here that submission is a command from God. But if you see the beauty of God's design, it's not so hard to submit when God is telling husbands that they're also to love their wives. So this is what submission is. Submission is simply following what your husband asks you to do. Now, I'll give you an example. If there's a discussion on the table, so the husband wants one thing, the wife wants something else, what the husband and the wife should do is sit down together and discuss it. Because the husband will have a valid thing to say, the wife will have a valid point of view that's probably different. So it's good to discuss it as husband and wife. But when the husband says, okay, I've made my final decision, I've heard you, my wife, I have heard your point of view, and I prayed about it, but this is my decision, that's when the wife should follow. And the thing about submission is, it's not actually just placing our faith in our husband, it's actually placing our faith in God. Because if we know God is actually the head of the household, and then the husband follows the husband is to submit to God, the wife is to submit to the husband. So when we submit to the husband, it's actually showing place a faith in God. Because I know sometimes women, we worry because we feel like, what if I don't agree with my husband, or what if he's wrong? I don't want to follow because I don't really think that I respect his opinion. This is the fear of many women. But when we submit, it's actually showing faith in God. It's saying, God, I know that you placed my husband as the head of my house, and on the day I said I do, I agreed that I would submit to him. And so now I'm going to do it, and I'm going to trust you, God. So God, please, you be the one to work it out. Because the beautiful thing is, if God is the center of our marriage, he has this amazing way of working things out. So even if we don't completely agree, we can pray, and God will be the one to take care of us. Sometimes God will change our husband's mind, or sometimes he makes us realize that we were actually wrong and our husband was right. But if God is in the center, we can always trust that he will take care of us, because he has our best interest in heart. He has our husband's best interest in heart. So that's the beauty of having God in the center. And when we submit to our husbands, we're also submitting to God. And I've talked to many, many women who are very career-driven. They're strong personalities. They're really go-getters. And they're married to men that they feel are less strong as leaders. So this is a common problem that women have brought up. And they say, how can I submit to my husband if I feel like I'm a better leader than him? So we encourage the wives, you have to be willing to step down a bit. If you want your husband to rise and be the leader that God created him to be, we have to be willing to step down and actually follow. So allow your husbands to start making decisions, and then when he makes a decision, you have to follow. Because some husbands feel like, what's the point of leading if my wife doesn't listen to anything I say anyway? So what happens is the husband will stop leading because they give up already. And we don't want that to happen. We want to encourage our husbands to step up and be the leaders that God can help them be. So we have to be willing to actually follow, joyfully follow.
And if you have some, of course, sometimes the husbands are not perfect, right? And their decisions are really off. And so one time we have a major decision that I'm really wanting to pursue. And then so Lisa, because she's respecting me and she's submitting, she just prayed to God. So I came home and said, have you been praying to the Lord? Because he started to change my heart and said, okay, I think you are right, Lisa. So don't worry about submitting to your husband, because as far as God is concerned, he's still on top of your husband. And so when you don't agree with your husband, who do you talk to? The Lord. Sumbong mo kay Lord. And the Lord will change your husband's heart. And have faith that it will happen. It has happened to us many times before.
So God will be the one to take care of us. So if you don't agree with your husband, instead of complaining and whining, just bring it to God, and you'll see the amazing things that God can do. And then we're going to talk about how to adjust our perspective. So for women, it's all about our attitude. This is an area that women in general struggle with, but this is so, so important, our attitude. Why? Here's the thing. Women set the temperature in the home. If the wife ain't happy, nobody's happy. Have you guys heard that before? Do you think it's true? Okay, I want you to think back to your home life when you were a kid. I want you to think about what kind of home you had. Was it a happy home or was it not a happy home? And I want you to think what your mother was like. Because the chances are, if your mother was a joyful, kind person, your home was happier, right? But if your mother was cranky, always angry, always mad at you, always disrespectful to her husband, it probably affected you as a child,
And
right?
now she's your mother-in-law.
So women, we have a big responsibility with our attitude. You know, there was this time, I remember I woke up, so we have 3 kids. So I woke up, I was feeling a little off, you know, a little cranky. And then my kids started waking up. They were cranky. And then my husband woke up and he was cranky. And it was just like, you know, everyone was, you know, cranky. And then I was thinking to myself, what is wrong with these people? Like, what, you know, what's with their attitude today? So I was talking to God. And then he told me, he's like, you know, Lisa, in all honesty, it started with you. Because you were cranky, you're the one who like affected everybody. Because a bad attitude, it's like a virus. It affects everyone around us. So women, we really need to be responsible for our attitudes. And we really need to find our joy in the Lord. You know, we can't find our joy from our husbands or from our circumstances. Our joy can only be found in the Lord. You know, this was something I also had to learn that, you know, sometimes when couples get married, like me, we think that our spouse is there to make us happy or to fulfill a need in us or to make us feel loved. And then what happens is we start like sucking the life out of our husband because we're trying to use him to fill the void. We're trying to use our husband to make us feel loved or to make us feel satisfied or to take care of us. But then what happens is when the husband starts feeling like the life is being sucked out of him, he becomes also upset and withholds love. So the thing is, women, we have to realize our joy and our satisfaction and our sense of self-worth and our sense of being loved cannot be found in our husband. It can only be found in Jesus Christ alone. So especially for those who are, you know, I know many of you are getting married, some of you are newly married. Always remember, our joy comes from Christ alone, not from our husband. So even if we feel like our husband is not doing the best, even if we're not completely happy with him, we can still find joy in Christ alone. I love this verse. Proverbs 21 verse 9. It is better to live on the corner of a roof than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife. So tell it like it is. You know, I never fully understood this verse until about a year ago. We were doing a seminar very much like this in the Middle East. So we were doing a marriage seminar. And it is so hot there. So the place where we were doing the seminar is near to the place where this verse was written first, okay? So same part of the world. And it is so hot. I remember I woke up before 6 o'clock and I was going to take the kids out so that they could, you know, enjoy the cool early morning breeze. So we go out and I'm like drenched. It's not even 6 o'clock. I told the kids, I'm sorry guys, we gotta go back in. I can't, like, I think I lasted 5 minutes. It's really hot, scorching hot. And this verse says, it is better to live on the corner of a roof than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife. In other words, the husband's saying, it's better to be up there on the roof under that scorching heat and feel like you're dying than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife. So women, that's our responsibility. It is so difficult for men if we're always fighting them, nagging with them, or pointing out their flaws. You know, we can really drag them down. So we need to change our attitude. We need to raise our appreciation level and lower our expectation level. You know, I tell women, try to find something that your husband is doing right and then encourage them in that area. Because so often as women, we have this long list of things that we think our husband should be doing. We have so many expectations. And then when they don't meet the expectations, we get upset with them. But instead, we need to change our perspective and start appreciating the things that they do right. And when we appreciate it, they'll be more motivated to do even better next time. And we also need to change the way we talk to them when we appreciate them. Now, one time in our house, I felt like things were really falling apart. Like everything kind of was needing to be fixed and falling apart. And my husband, his name is Manny. So I would joke that he's called like Handy Manny. Because he's really good at fixing stuff. Like he can fix anything. He's amazing. He can do it. So, but I noticed that our house was falling apart. And I would be asking him, you know, Manny, can you please fix this? Can you fix that? And the years were actually passing by and he wasn't doing it. So I would start complaining like, oh, this needs to be fixed, or what about that? That's broken. So I would start whining, thinking that it would motivate him to fix it. And it wasn't working at all. He wasn't fixing it even though he's capable, but he's just very busy. So God told me, okay, you have to change your perspective or change the way you talk to him. So finally he did. He started to like fix a light bulb. And I looked at him and I was like, babe, I was like, you look so sexy when you're changing that light bulb. And he was like, oh, really? And he was like, what else needs to be fixed? I'll fix it now. So, so everything in our house got fixed, And the only thing different was the way I talked to him. So I started to appreciate what he did instead of just dragging him down. So we need to change the way we talk to our husbands. Be more appreciative and notice what they're doing right and encourage them and tell them that they're doing great instead of just pointing out their flaws and what is wrong with them. So, what is the number one desire of husbands? So first, what was the number one desire of women? Do you remember from Manny's talk? For women to be loved by their husbands. How about for husbands, what's the number one desire? According to studies, it is that they are respected. Husbands need to feel respected by their wives. And survey after survey shows this, that husbands put respect on the top of the list, ahead of love. And the beautiful thing about this is God has known this all along, because God is the one who created us. So if you see in this verse, it says, nevertheless, let each individual among you also love his own wife as himself. And let the wife see to it that she respect her husband. So we see here that God, being the brilliant designer, he already knew that women needed to be loved and men needed to be respected. That's why he tells men, you love your wife. He tells women, respect your husband. We need to show respect. So some practical ways. We need to build him up and not tear him down. We need to watch our tone of voice. I've noticed men are very sensitive to our tone of voice when we talk. So if the woman is, rolling her eyes or whining, they feel very disrespected. And I noticed a lot of men, when they feel disrespected, they get angry. So it becomes a crazy cycle. Never make fun of your husband in front of other people. Believe in him and what God can do through him. And lessen your complaints. So again, focus on the things he does right, the things he does great.
All right, at this point, I would like you, if you have rings, I would like you to, just hold it. In marriage, I realize in your love life, you will come across 3 rings in your love life. The first is what? Engagement ring. The second is wedding ring, this. And the third is suffering. You know what happens, suffering marriage? Suffering in marriage happens when the husband starts neglecting his role. And when he starts neglecting his role, the wife feels unloved. Maybe the husband is not leading, or he's not loving, or he's not providing. So she feels unloved. And so now the wife would start to neglect her role or withdraw the respect from the husband. And so he feels disrespected. And when he feels disrespected, what happens? He will, neglect his role again. So this is the crazy cycle of suffering. So how do we now stop this crazy cycle of suffering? By introducing the 4th ring in marriage, which is called what? Enduring. Your rings is made of gold. How do you make gold? How do you make gold more pure? Through heat. The more heat you apply to gold, the more pure it becomes. In the same way, your marriage is like that. The more heat, the more tension, it should make your marriage thrive even more, purer even more, sanctified, as the Bible would define it. So enduring marriage means even if the wife is not doing her role, the husband will still do his role. No matter what, he will do the role no matter what, even if problem comes. And even if the husband is not doing his role, the wife will continue to do her role and allow God to change the marriage.
When we do couples counseling and people come to us with marriage problems, we can often trace it back to this. So what happens is the husband and the wife are not doing their role. And what the wife will say is, how can I respect him when he's not loving me? And then the husband will say, how can I love her when she is not respecting me, when she's not doing her role? So that becomes a crazy cycle, because the wife will say, okay, fine, I'll do my part when and if I see him do his part. And then the husband will say, I'll do my part when I see her do her part. So it goes around and around, and the crazy cycle can get crazier and crazier until one or both of the spouses has to stop it and say, you know what, this craziness has to stop. I'm going to decide to do my role, even if my husband is not doing his role. Or if the husband says, I'm going to do my role, I'm going to love her, I'm going to provide for her, I'm going to lead her, even if I don't feel respected or that she's listening to me or submitting. So that's when the crazy cycle can end.
And you know, 10 years in the ministry, we've realized that the cause of suffering in marriage is selfishness. That is the number one marriage killer. If you're a selfish person, you come into a marriage and that the person you married is also selfish. Everybody's selfish. When you're single, you're selfish. You go into marriage, two selfish person living in the same house, what do you think will happen? Suffering. So how do you now fix this suffering in marriage? By being unselfish, by being loving, by doing your role that God has wanted to you.
Yeah.
So the best marriage is between two selfless people.
Yeah, because so often people enter marriage thinking, what's in it for me? Like, how can my husband satisfy my needs? And then when we don't feel satisfied, we get upset and we withhold from them. And then the husband does the same thing. So that's selfishness, because it's all centered around me, what I need, what I want, what makes me feel loved. But a real happy, thriving marriage is when it's more about how can I help you? How can I serve you? So if the wife is helping the husband feel respected and loved, the husband's taking care of the wife, then it becomes a beautiful thing because they really work together in teamwork, knowing that we have each other's back. We love each other, we're in this together, and we're really there to help each other. You know, marriage is not 50-50. It's not, I'll do my part if you do your part. Marriage is 100-100. It's, I will do my role whether or not my husband is doing his role. Because when I do my role, I do it for God. And God will be the one to bless us and to bless our marriage. And God can be the one to change our husbands. You know, sometimes people get into marriage and they get disappointed because it's not everything that they thought it would be or everything that they expected it to be. But the thing is, there's always hope in the Lord. God can really make something beautiful, even from the difficulties.
And the thing is, God gave 100% of Him so that we may be made complete in Him.
You know, the Bible says, while we were still sinning, Christ died for us. And that was the verse that really impacted me when I felt like I didn't want to love my husband back because I felt like he's really not a good husband. But then what God told me was, He said, Lisa, while you were still sinning, I died for you. So while I was still hurting God, while I was still sinning against Him, He still chose to die for me. He still chose to give His 100% for me. So if He did that for me, if He forgave me even while I was hurting Him, how can I not show the same love to my husband if that's what God did for me? You know, we can only give what we have. We can only give love if we have accepted the love from the Lord. We can only give forgiveness if we understand God's forgiveness for us. And I just want to encourage you as we close to really embrace your present. You know, so often in marriage, or even before you get married, we're so focused on what we want to happen or what we wish would happen. We think, you know, if only this would happen, then I would be happy. Like, if only my husband would change, then I would be happy. Or if only we had more money for our wedding, then I would be happy. So we live in the what ifs. If only this, if only that, if only my husband worked harder, or if only my wife did a better job at home. But, you know, we need to learn to really embrace the present that God has given us and to enjoy what He's given us. And we always try to grow and to learn, but we can enjoy what God has given us at this time.
Bloom where you are planted.
So I love this. When you're broke, but she believes in your dreams. So here's a woman who gets it. She sees the potential in her husband.
Yeah, that's like us. That's exactly our picture.
Yeah, and as we close, I just want to encourage you that, you know, no matter where you are now, I know many of you are about to start your marriage, some of you are already married, but God can do amazing and beautiful things in your marriage, but we just have to be willing to, number one, we have to know Him. Number two, we have to really follow the way He designed things to be. So I'm excited for what God will do in your lives.
And for those of you who are, you know that somebody could benefit from a seminar like this, have you learned something? Have you learned some principles? So if you know somebody who needs help in their marriage, I would like to encourage you to invite them to the We Still Do Marriage Enrichment Retreat. So this is an overnight retreat. It's happening on May 30 to 31. So you can check it out. You have the flyers with you and just call the number there and we will help you. So thank you guys. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Manny and Lisa. Ladies and gentlemen, palakpakan po natin ulit sila.